There was a peaceful protest outside the Sudbury Regional Police Station this afternoon.
Here we go!
We better get a couple of flames on that.
About 75 people gathered to watch Marc Emery, an activist and publisher of Cannabis Culture magazine, light up a marijuana joint. Then several people sparked their own. Emery says he did it to show Canadians marijuana is legal. He says it's time for pot smokers to ask some questions.
Something we ought to be asking the Premier and the Attorney General of Ontario is, how come you haven't told the people that marijuana was declared legal by courts over 2 years ago, and you've continued to arrest thousands of people since that time on July 31st, 2001?
And there were no arrests, and for the most part, the protest was ignored by...
But let me tell you, back in those days, not so long ago, when I was from London and I gave out High Times magazines right in front of these very police doorsteps, the fine was $100,000 to distribute what they called illicit drug literature and 6 months in jail. And even for marijuana, this joint, up till the Charter of Rights defended our right to have this joint, but up till then, possessing marijuana would be up to 6 months in jail and a $2,000 fine. So telling the truth about pot was 50 times more dangerous than actually possessing pot, which is really the story of what this all is. You know, marijuana's been legal, not just in Ontario. Hey, how you doing? This woman actually came to see me in Halifax and Moncton with her boyfriend, which was really awesome.
My brother.
Oh, your brother, sorry. And that was terrific, having people. People have come from hundreds and hundreds of miles to see me speak, and I am totally flattered. And how you doing? So, marijuana's legal. It's been legal for over 2 years, but you hardly ever hear about it. You know, 75,000 people have been charged in the last 2 years. You know, a record number of Canadians were charged with marijuana possession and cultivation offenses last year. 50,250 people were charged in the year 2002. Now, let me just tell you a couple of things about that. In the year 2002, we've had marijuana prohibition arresting people en masse for 38 years, pretty well since 1965. And last year was the largest number of pot arrests in the history of this country. And that tells us two things. Marijuana's legal, and more people got arrested than ever before, which is a terrible, terrible thing. We're going to smoke this, and we're not going to get accosted by the police. We're not going to get arrested. No one's going to take this pot away. No one's going to detain us or question us. It's been like that for over 2 years, but the Solicitor General of Ontario and the Solicitor General and Justice Ministers of Canada have not ever once told the Canadian public that, hey, marijuana is not only legal, it's been legal for 2 years, and we have falsely prosecuted 75,000 people. Now, over 1 million Canadians have criminal records. Hey, how you doing? 1 million Canadians have criminal records since 1966. 1 million Canadians have been convicted. 2 million Canadians were charged, detained, and hassled and had their pot taken away from them. About 1 million people in that period of time weren't charged but detained and questioned, and 1 million people were actually charged and convicted. If you have a charge, not even a conviction, if you have a charge against you for marijuana, you will never be able to travel to the United States. You'll never be able to go to an American university. You won't be able to get a job in a transnational company that has bases in Canada and the United States. Your life, especially if you are a young person, is completely, utterly compromised. And we have to ask ourselves, 1 million people have been convicted, and many of them, almost 500,000, put in jail for this, for marijuana. Now, what I want to know is, what is the moral basis? And I've asked many politicians and never gotten an answer, and that's what I'm here to tell you. Marijuana's legal now, but the politicians, when they see this tour going across Canada, and people are saying, hey, marijuana's legal, let's open a place like the Hippie Cafe, let's open a coffee shop, let's have a weed store, let's get pot out in the open because it's legal. Why are we hiding? Why are people still selling pot in silence and discreet places? Marijuana should be sold at that corner opposite the Money Mart. Marijuana should be available. It should be regulated to the degree that nothing is sprayed on this pot so you don't get poisoned, so that it's grown in a safe environment. And remember, when pot's legal, like it is today, you can regulate a legal environment. You can't regulate an illegal environment. In an illegal environment, and what I want to know is, we've had prohibition, and for 35 years, 1 million people criminalized. How has the nation, how has Canada benefited by that? Where is the single benefit to Canadians? Our taxes are $2 billion a year to subsidize the war on marijuana. The police use every possible privacy invading tool to invade your privacy with thermal imagers that can see you in perfect detail in your home, what you're doing, what you're growing, you know, everything about you, whether you're having sex because your body temperature changes. They can spy without any warrant, without any search to seize your weapon. They can stop your car. If they smell pot in your car, they can suspend your license. Why are you impaired? No. Marijuana doesn't impair, marijuana enhances. Does marijuana impair? No. No. Does marijuana make life better, more beautiful? Yes. Now you gotta ask yourself, marijuana's not toxic, can't possibly kill you, unlike thousands of legal things and legal activities that'll kill you, that are destructive to the body politic. Now I'm not saying we should make them illegal, but I want to point out that 1 million Canadians, that's a population 2.5 times the size of London, the new expanded boundaries since I have left. 2.5 times the population of London have got a conviction for marijuana. 5 times the population of London have been charged or detained for marijuana, if not convicted. So what I want to know is, what is the moral basis behind the prohibition of marijuana and the war on people like you and I? What is the moral basis? Hi, Michael Davidson. They never give an explanation ever about why you and I should spend 1 minute in jail, why we should ever be detained. I have never heard it. We spend $2 billion a year on the drug war. People have their rights violated all the time. You can have your children taken away. Hell, you could have your father taken away to some degree. They could be 500,000 children in Canada in the last 35 years have had at least 1 week when one of their parents was in jail. That is a scandalous thing, to have families broken up in a war on marijuana. And this marijuana grows on every place, every hamlet, every village, every city, every block on earth, bar none. Marijuana grows more commonly in more places than any other plant grown on earth. I'll tell you, you can grow lettuce maybe on 5 or 10% of Canadian farms, but marijuana grows 100% in every province, every city. Everywhere I go, someone is growing marijuana. We have the biggest, I don't want to call it a cult, but there's 164 million people on this planet who smoke marijuana. According to the United Nations, that's 5.5 times the population of Canada. And all I want to tell you is 164 million people can't all be wrong. What is the moral basis? See, after I go, you can't just say, oh, that was fun, that was a good speech, we all got a hit on that chonger. Right? You have to do something about this. We are running in the next federal election, the Marijuana Party of Canada, and we want 308 candidates from every possible corner of this country. Because you know what? Marijuana is legal now. You've got a hippie cafe. You're going to have people selling weed much more out in the open. You're going to have people smoking on the street like we're doing today. You can have all that, but in order to keep it, remember, when the government comes back, they're going to say, I can't believe it. They actually found out that marijuana was legal because we didn't tell them, right? The government's been trying to bring out some new legislation that allegedly is decriminalization. It's nothing of the sort. If the government would stop appealing all the court cases they keep losing, marijuana would be legal and uniformly so across all of Canada. By the way, this is the 13th city on my nationwide tour. I have been arrested in 6 places. Don't let anybody ever tell you nobody goes to jail for small amounts of pot. I was held in leg irons for 24 hours in Winnipeg jail for half a gram of pot. I was brought before the judge in handcuffs and leg manacles, going like this. I was detained for several hours in Edmonton in my handcuffs, my mag, so that when I went before Justice of the Peace, because they tried not to let me out, they wanted to have me denied bail and keep me several weeks until trial, which they also wanted to do in Winnipeg, I had to make my case before the judge with my hands cuffed behind my back, while the prosecution, a police officer, tried to make it so I couldn't get out there for 2 to 3 months potentially. Because they said, he's going to reoffend, he's going to go and do this everywhere else. And you're damn right I'm going to do it. Not only is it legal, it's proper. It's morally, ethically, legitimately, legally right to smoke this marijuana. And you'd be shocked. I've been charged in 6 jurisdictions. I've been put in jail in every last one of them. And they refuse to actually tell the public what the police hear. I will say one thing. The police are in the paper today saying, oh, he's not going to get what he wants from this time. I've already got what I want. I got the concession from them that marijuana is legal and there's nothing they can do about it. In every other jurisdiction I've been to, the police are saying, well, it might be legal, but we're still going to try and take their pot away from them and take their name. Just like your father, when he doesn't realize you're 21, you've been living on your own for 3 years, and he has no right to tell you what to do. The cop's still going to run, well, we're going to take your name, we're going to take your pot. Like, still trying to make you feel bad, still trying to make you put you down, still trying to make you feel like you're second-class citizens. And you know why? Because the more they marginalize us, the more they keep us out of the mainstream. That's what police fear. I mean, I don't know why. You think they'd be grateful that 3 million Canadians who smoke marijuana would no longer be considered their natural enemies any longer? That the police, we could call the police when our grow-ups get home invaded instead of having to wonder, oh, what am I going to do? Or when something's going on in the street and you've got pot on you, you're afraid, wow, geez, if I call a cop though, and you're young, you're bound to get rousted, because they always do roust you, illegally or not. They always assume that young people have no rights, right? And it's all a war about young people. You don't see many 45-year-old guys my age, you know, smoking a chonga or anything smaller than this, ever really getting arrested in their own home. It's young people. They're easy to roust. They're always made the impression they don't have any rights. They can't afford a lawyer, and they're usually out in the street, out in public. What is the moral basis behind the war on you and I that has taken 1 million victims, 1 million people with criminal records? Think of it. The worst pogroms in the world are against people like Falun Dafa, Falun Gong. And even then, nothing close to 1 million of them have been arrested in years and years and years. Marijuana people, you know, there's 250,000 people in jail at any one time on planet Earth over marijuana. A good 150,000 of them in the United States, and another 100,000 worldwide. And our neighbor to the south, George Bush, is petrified that this will stay legal. He can't believe that there's a social democracy north of the United States that is safer, with better schools, better pot laws, better pot, and a better way of life, less violent, less gun crime, nicer people, better standard of living. In fact, Canada's nicer than the United States in every single way, and it scares the hell out of that administration. They know that every single marijuana smoker in the United States, all 20 million of them, not one person is going to be voting for George Bush in the next election. Not a one. And let me tell you, they have us targeted. That's what, it's amazing the infiltration of the U.S. government into Canada, such that only days ago, 5 Liberal MPs from Ontario, of all places, where marijuana is already legal, were actually at the U.S. Embassy consulting with the drug czar's representative on how Canadians should be further punished if they make marijuana legal. Our own Liberal MPs from Ontario were committing an act of treason. An act of treason to go to a foreign power and say, punish my own country for something we are doing by our elected government. That is scandalous and shocking, and one of the many perfidies that have gone on in the war on marijuana. Like the lies, have they ever, you know, people say, I'll say, well, what's the worst you can say about marijuana? And they say, well, marijuana is bad for it. And I say, but marijuana doesn't go to jail. Marijuana doesn't lose its kids. Marijuana doesn't have to get urine tested. Marijuana doesn't get stopped at the border. Well, it does get stopped at the border. But marijuana doesn't go to jail. Marijuana doesn't suffer pain. And marijuana doesn't vote, and marijuana isn't human. We're human. We go to jail. So people might say marijuana is bad, but what they're really saying is there's something wrong with us, that we're bad, that we don't work for a living, that none of us pay taxes or something, or that we're all scum. That's what the war on marijuana is really saying, is to keep you down. And I'm here to smoke this big joint with you, and afterwards I'm going to go down to the Hippie Cafe. I hope it's still open. And I'm going to bring you a couple more big chongers, and we'll all smoke them out there too. And I want to tell you that you should be proud of marijuana. Marijuana does not impair. Few myths. Marijuana does not impair. Marijuana enhances. One of the things that people ask me who've never smoked a joint, there are still some people in the earth. And by the way, make sure you get a brochure. Somebody's got them out there. I don't know who's giving out the brochures. There you go. Ray, get one from Ray.
What?
All right. What was my last remark? And I haven't smoked, so don't blame the pot. Doesn't impair. Well, none of that marijuana, when people ask me what's marijuana like, I say, well, marijuana is extremely interesting in that it's like a sixth sense to all your 5 senses. Our 5 senses are taste, smell, sight, audio, hearing, and touch. When you smoke marijuana, things taste different. Things smell different. And as we all know from watching much music, they sure look different too. For the first time, we're going, oh, this is profound. Am I always missing this important message inherent in all these videos by Jay-Z? And it makes touch, it makes sex, it makes passion, it makes everything much more interesting. But most importantly, the most important sense is audio. It makes the way you hear things much differently. You know, there's 3 forms of music that are exclusively from marijuana influence. Marijuana first arrived in North America in 1910 in the New Orleans Delta, where black longshoremen would be taking heavy objects off the ships, and they'd be getting marijuana because port cities are always the first places where substances like this, euphorics, arrive. And the black longshoremen started smoking it. And at night when they went home, they started playing music, and they realized the music was different now. The beats were different. And that's where the blues and jazz music came from, out of the marijuana and the Delta of the 1910-1915 period. So the First World War comes along, and there are factories all over North America producing war munitions, and they need lots of workers because all the white young people that have been sent off to be killed can't work in the factory. So they bring the black people north, and the black people bring their marijuana, they bring their musical forms with them, and they go to all corners of North America. That's how marijuana spread to everything. And the reason